New buy, sell, keep, avoid is back for Gameweek 18. Welcome to FPL Mate, my name is Dan, and a lot of people are selling Saka after his big injury news, but who are the replacements and can we spend some of that Saka money to upgrade other areas of our team? Let's find out. And before we do, guys, if you haven't checked out this special Christmas episode of the Stick to FPL podcast for Game Week 18, I definitely recommend it if you are looking to replace Saka, as we spend a decent amount of time looking through the options for you guys. So the link is in the description, or you can search Stick to FPL on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. Go ahead and check it out. You won't regret it. And of course, this video is going to work the same as always. The first section of the video, we are going to be looking at the players you should either keep or maybe sell. After that, we're going to move on and see who you should replace them with, who are the buys and who are the avoids. Players will be tier listed, the top players at the top and the bottom players at the bottom. All makes sense? Great. Let's get going. So let's start off with the forwards. I know you're very keen to talk about midfielders, but I think we've got to look at all positions this game week for double transfer purposes. And Jackson is going to be the top of our list for keeps. I know some people may be disappointed about his blank against Everton, but he did have a big chance to score in that game. He often does get big chances, and actually his numbers are pretty high among all of the forwards that we're looking at right now. 2.5 XG in 5 appearances with a little bit of creative threat as well. And even though Fulham at home isn't the perfect fixture, fixtures like Ipswich away, there's definitely some possibilities in the medium fixtures, and we do have that nice fixture in 19. So long live Jackson in our teams. I think he's still got plenty to give, and he's putting up some very good numbers and looking like an in-form forward, and there's not actually too many in-form forwards right now. Wood is also going to be a keep against Spurs. We know Spurs concede a whole load of goals, and actually over recent game weeks, Spurs have dropped into the bottom 3 defenses for expected goals conceded, non-penalty. So definitely a defense that we want to be targeting right now, and Chris Wood, the star striker of this Forest team, is expected to get some results. Penalty taker as well is useful. And I would give Wissa one more week against Brighton, who have been a weak defense and an out of form team, particularly as Wissa is playing as a central striker once more, which is very useful indeed. Wissa's numbers have dropped off in recent game weeks, but again, I would give him one more chance for this Brighton game. I think he is a pretty low priority transfer. Haaland is in monitor right now with all of this Saka cash floating about at the moment. I think there's definitely an opportunity to see what Haaland can do in some of these easier fixtures against the likes of Leicester, West Ham and Brentford. Now, I'm not expecting too much against Everton. They seem to be a super defense right now. However, Haaland has a great opportunity to start building up some form in these good fixtures. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I don't think Haaland is as much of a sell as he perhaps was a couple of weeks ago. João Pedro is also in here. I would be willing to give him another chance against Brentford, but he is a player to monitor and consider selling soon. His form has really dropped off recently. Raul Jimenez, a little bit of rotation risk there, but with Fulham failing to score against Southampton in game week 17, I do wonder if Raul Jimenez will go back into the starting lineup ahead of Muniz, and we still do have some decent fixtures in the near future for him. One to keep an eye on. And Cunha, I'm going to have to put him in the monitor section for now, but the ban is pending. I think unless we get definitive news about his ban, which will happen at some point, he has already been charged, so we know a ban is coming unless he can somehow overturn it. I don't see that happening, but as soon as that comes into play, he is going to be a useless FPL asset, particularly if the ban is long. But if you do have Cunha and we don't get any news before deadline, I would try and keep Cunha and maybe hold on to a decent first bench option. If you got that, I think you will be covered. But in general, if Cunha is banned before the Game Week 18 deadline, it hasn't happened at time of recording, he will become an instant sell, in my opinion. There we go. Into the sell category, Watkins with his rotation risk, Duran performing, and that price tag, it's just not worth it anymore, is it? Particularly at Newcastle away is a pretty good jumping off point for the Aston Villa striker as well. Strand Larsen not really performing too well as well, and the fixtures from here on are pretty average as well. Man United, Spurs, which is not too bad, Man United not too bad as well, but we've got Forest and Newcastle in there. There's certainly no targetable fixtures, which is what you really need for those cheaper strikers. And Welbeck, still injured. We're not sure if he's going to be ready for the Brentford game in Game Week 18. Another player I would just be looking to remove from the teams right now. For your midfielders, if you've got players like Bruno and Mbeumo, I really think that you probably have bigger issues in your team before thinking about removing these guys. So therefore, they are keeps. They are nailed-on men, penalty takers, and these are really useful things to have. Both of them have very good fixtures as well. So even though they might not make your dream team right now in FPL, I don't think they're worth selling. And certainly with Bruno, I think a lot of people will actually be considering buying him this week as a Saka replacement. More on that very, very soon. Kaoru Mitoma is another player I would be willing to keep with a nice fixture at home against Brentford. We could see some goals in this game if Brighton can pick up their form. But neither Brentford or Brighton really providing any consistency recently. So it could be a chaotic one. It could be full of goals. Boxing Day fixtures often result in a lot of goals, more goals than usual. So both of these guys are going to be able to score against one another. Let's just see if that happens or not. Iwobi is going to be in the monitor category. Now, I did say last week that he wasn't really one of my favorite midfielders to buy. However, if you did go for him, if you did buy him, then I would just stick it out with him. I don't think he is a terrible pick or anything like that. He's okay. The next two fixtures aren't great for him, but he's certainly playable even in these fixtures. And you never know, you could get a result from it, as Fulham are, in general, a pretty decent team and are capable of beating even the more difficult oppositions. Iwobi, capable of producing moments of magic, but I wouldn't expect it necessarily. It could happen, but we don't know for sure. After that, I think everyone is arguably a player to sell, but we have to prioritize here which players are players we have to remove and which players we could maybe afford to keep. Now, Johnson is going to be one of those players who we could maybe afford to keep. As we know, when he plays, when he starts, he does very well. And even off the bench, he is capable of getting results. So even though the Forest away fixture is not great for him, if you've got bigger problems, I would be okay with keeping him. If you don't have any other problems, at that point, I would be looking to sell him, as with Madueke, with that rotation risk. But with a midweek fixture, the fixture's a little bit tighter together. That often breeds opportunities for players who have recently been benched, and Madueke is one of those guys. So we could play against Fulham. I can see it happening. Smith Rowe, carrying a knock, unable to play last game week, but from what I know, the knock is not serious. Unless we get any further news to say it is very serious, I would be willing to keep him for this Chelsea fixture. Let's see how it goes there. And the players who I would just definitely sell involve McNeil, who is touch and go for this game week. I don't trust Everton to score goals anyway. And Rashford, who has pretty much been frozen out of the team at this point. He would be a good player to remove. And of course, Saka. Let's go over him quickly, guys. The latest news is that he could be out until March. That is what the rumours are saying right now. Arteta says, you know, this is a big injury. He is going to be out for several weeks. Best case scenario, he's going to be out for like a month. But it was also said in the press conference from Arsenal, from Arteta, that Saka will be back before the end of the season. And that's not exactly what you want to hear if you're an Arsenal fan or a Saka owner. So he is just an instant priority sell. We're not going to get any clear answers from Arteta. The rumours are that he's going to be out for several months. And if so, it's going to be a very easy remove, which is such a shame because I know a lot of Saka owners were really looking forward to this run of fixtures against Ipswich, Brentford, Brighton and Spurs. But it's just not going to happen for us. Saka is the guy to remove. Got to get rid of him and start reinvesting that Saka money in other areas of your pitch. Hopefully, to really improve your team. This could get very, very interesting very, very quickly. Defenders to keep, Van Dijk, definitely. I know he has disappointed recently, but Liverpool's fixtures turn now. Leicester, West Ham, Man United and Forest, plenty of opportunities for clean sheets in this game, and we know about the aerial threat that Van Dijk does possess. Saliba, not so much as of an attacking threat usually. However, the one good fixture we have left against Ipswich for the Arsenal defenders is well worth holding on to him for. I would consider selling a player like Saliba from game week 19 onwards, but for game week 18, I think you've got to keep him. Arsenal have the best clean sheet odds of any team in game week 18. And Gavardio, those Man City defenders have not been performing, but what you have to admit is that as bad as Man City have been defensively, Everton have been just as bad in attack. They really, really have. So I think Man City, if they are going to keep a clean sheet, this is the fixture to do it at home against a team that has forgotten how to score goals. Very, very simple keep, in my opinion. And of course, we constantly have that goal threat from Gvardiol as well. The one concern is maybe Gvardiol plays at centre-back, considering that City are lacking in centre-backs at the moment. And maybe his goal threat diminishes just a little bit. Lewis, for similar reasons, would be a high monitor, probably a keep. Guehi as well is here. We've got some good fixtures coming up for Crystal Palace, so I don't think there's any rush to sell him, despite some negative points in recent game weeks. I think that will start to pick up for him, and clean sheets will come, particularly in games against Southampton and Leicester in 19 and 21. A decent rotation defender to have in your team if you already have him, but if you're buying new, I would go for another Crystal Palace defender. You probably know who it is, but we will get there. Pedro Porro, another player to monitor. The fixtures are still pretty good for the next two, but his performances have not been there, and Spurs are a pretty weak defence. Is he worth the money? Probably not, but you might have bigger problems. Mazraoui, another player for our defence who has been disappointing recently, but again, the fixture against Wolves is not too bad, so maybe you could keep him. Dalot, I'd be less willing to keep because at 5.2 million, it is just too much. And after Wolves, who are capable of scoring, we have got Newcastle and Liverpool after that. So in general, Manchester United defenders, I would be willing to sell right now, particularly Dalot, because he is quite expensive. Mazraoui is far more benchable than a Dalot, for example. Digne has a little bit of rotation risk, but the problem with him is he's playing in the more difficult games when you would want to bench him anyway. So Newcastle, Brighton, not great fixtures for Villa. You probably are thinking about benching him for these fixtures and playing him for 20 and 21, but there's no guarantee he even starts in game week 20 and 21. So a real difficult one there. And Ait Nouri, he is just a player to sell right now, I think, because of the very difficult fixtures from a defensive point of view. Man United, Spurs and Newcastle in the next four, all more than capable of getting goals. I think we can do a little bit better for that price tag. And a reminder, guys, if you haven't liked the video yet, please do. Really, really do appreciate all the support on Buy, Sell, Keep, Avoid this season. Keep dropping likes and let me know that I'm doing a good job. And of course, if there's any suggestions you want to improve this series at all, I'm constantly taking some of your great ideas and adding them to the video. So let me know. I really want this video series to be a success, and hopefully we're going in the right direction. Of course, subscribe as well if you are new around here. Okay, we know who we're going to sell. Now let's figure out who we are going to buy. And of course, the first player on the forwards buy list is Alexander Isak, and he's been on this list every week for a long time now. Yes, Isak is by far the best forward in the game of FPL right now and is competing with the likes of Salah and Palmer, arguably outscoring Palmer with some phenomenal performances recently. He is on fire. 6 goals and 2 assists in his last 6 games. Really, really strong data here as well, with 20 shots, 4.29 XG. And I can't underestimate this enough. 14 key passes as well as this great striking data is just incredible. He is the talisman, the heart of this Newcastle team, nailed on, penalty taker. He's everything that you want. And Aston Villa, Man United and Spurs may sound like mediocre fixtures on paper, but when we have a striker in form, these are fine fixtures for him, and I expect him to continue his great performances and continue to get FPL points. Don't miss out on any more Alexander Isak hauls. Get him in your team. So important. You know, he is up there with Salah as the most important players to own right now. He really is. My second place for best strikers right now is probably going to go to Jackson still. We mentioned him already, but he's another player with some of the best data and is putting up the best performances among those forwards. And Gabriel Jesus is going to be third for me. Maybe a little controversial, maybe a little premature, but he scored 5 goals in his last 2 appearances for Arsenal, including the League Cup, where he did score a hat-trick against Crystal Palace. When a striker is in form, that breeds confidence and that improves their goal-scoring rate. And of course, with the injuries to Saka and Sterling as well, Gabby Jesus' position in the team is more nailed on than ever. You can pick up Arsenal, a top team in the Premier League, their current striker for 6.8 million, who is in form and has great fixtures. I love it. I think there is some degree of risk in this pick, but if you want to go risky, if you want to go different, this is exactly where I'd be looking to go for a slightly cheaper forward. Of course, make sure you've got Isak in your team first. He's the priority. Wood is a player to monitor. Love the fixture against Spurs, but after that, the Everton fixture is worrying no matter who you are. You know, even Alexander Isak, I don't even know if he can score against Everton. And we've got Salah, who's got this double game week, going to involve Everton there as well. Who knows what will happen? It's like an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. But Chris Wood, not quite sure he's in the same league as an Isak and a Salah. And even though I like the Spurs and Wolves fixtures, the Everton and Liverpool fixtures, not so keen on those. He is a player to monitor. He is a decent player to own, but he's far from essential in my opinion. Solanke is also going to be in here because we don't really have too many options for forwards to buy right now. A lot of forwards out of form, but Solanke was able to get a goal and an assist against Liverpool, and maybe that breeds some confidence in the upcoming fixtures. João Pedro, yeah, I would still consider buying him, but he wouldn't be super high on my list. Havertz as well, a little bit too expensive for my liking. If you need an Arsenal attacker, Gabriel Jesus is probably the guy I would go for, given the form of the two players right now. And into the avoid section, Wissa, yes, I mentioned that I would keep him for this game week, but I don't think I would buy him with Arsenal in game week 19. I think that worries me just a little bit, and like I said, Wissa's data is on the downturn. I would keep him for one more game week, but I wouldn't buy him for this week. Duran is another really popular forward. I don't think Newcastle away is a great hopping on point, and I'm still a little worried about minutes, so I would give it one more week to assess Duran. Assess him, see how things are going. Do we have confidence that he will start more regularly? Because we do need to see that before we invest as an FPL asset. And Cunha, regardless of whether he is banned for this week or not, we know it's coming soon, so he's not a player I would buy right now. If you already have him, he might be fine to keep, but not a player I would be picking up. So here we go, guys, the Saka replacement time. We're looking at midfielders to buy right now, and again, this could be a little bit controversial, but I'm gonna lay it out how I see it. And how I see it is Ismaila Sarr is number one. And the reason for that is because he is putting up the best data of any midfielders right now outside of, you know, Salah and Palmer, obviously. So 2.54 non-penalty XG is phenomenal. 17 shots and 7 big chances. Incredible. Lots of key passes here with 7 and a decent amount of expected assists as well. The fixtures for Crystal Palace in general are good. I don't think Bournemouth is the perfect hopping on point, but Ismaila Sarr, you know, he's scoring against Arsenal. This is great, great stuff. I think if you can score against Arsenal, you can score against Bournemouth. I don't think that's too controversial to say. And after that, we've got the likes of Southampton and Leicester in this run. So really nice run of fixtures for the next 4 and beyond for Sarr. The most informed guy on this list right now, and he's only 5.7 million. Now, a lot of people will be tempted to say, I've got all of this money, and I'm going to spend it on a 5.7 million midfielder. That sounds crazy. I can have anyone I want. Why would I want a cheap guy? And I totally get that. But just look at the data, ignore the price, watch the player, ignore the price, and you'll soon be convinced that Sarr is got to be very, very high on the list of players to buy. Of course, I am taking price into consideration as well. And if Sarr was the same price as Fernandes and Ødegaard, then at that point, maybe I speak a little differently. But Sarr nailed on. Great minutes, of course. Great performances. Great data. Great fixtures. Great price. He has everything we look for in an FPL asset. So for me, he's the guy. But he's not the only guy. The other 2 players I like a lot, these are probably my top 3 Saka replacements, are going to be Bruno and Ødegaard. Now, Bruno is obviously set piece taker, penalty taker, looks very, very dangerous against Bournemouth despite the blank. And I think, you know, we've got this Wolves fixture, immediate potential for returns, which is always very satisfying when you get immediate returns. And I don't know if you have as much of a chance with Sarr to get those immediate returns. We do have Southampton in this run-in as well for Bruno. So I like this pick. I think we've spoken about him a decent amount already. I think he is definitely now that Saka is out of the picture, Bruno sounds like better value for money because we've got a lot of money laying around. Same with Ødegaard. I wouldn't buy him if Saka was available, but Ødegaard now going to be on a lot of corners. He's going to be taking over from Saka's corners. We know about the corner threat that Arsenal possess. We also know that Ødegaard will take over penalties. And even though Ødegaard's performances haven't been great, the data is there, the fixtures are there, and good fixtures breed good form. Let's see what he can do. A little bit risky, a little bit differential, because we haven't seen great performances from him in the same way as we've seen great performances from Ismail Assar. Bruno somewhere in the middle, Ødegaard a little bit less, but the fixtures are so good, I think we all just want a piece of that Arsenal attacking pie, and Ødegaard has certainly been boosted as an FPL asset with the absence of Saka. Ahmad is still a consideration for me, another player who has been in great form recently alongside Ismail Assar, and that price tag is very, very juicy indeed. Difficult game against Bournemouth, but against Wolves, much more opportunity to score goals, you would hope. Although saying that, of course, new manager for Wolves, you never fully know what's going to happen there. But yes, certainly Ahmad has got to be in the picture still. Then we've got some risky players, Luis Diaz and Diogo Jota. People will be super keen on these guys because they will see this Leicester at home fixture, and whoever starts in the attack for Liverpool are just going to be amazing. The problem is, Liverpool have all of their attackers fit now. Diaz is fit, Jota, Salah, Darwin, Gakpo, Harvey Elliott, Chiesa. That's 7 fit attackers for 3 slots in starting slots for Liverpool. So very, very difficult to predict. But if you want to take a risk and assume these guys are playing, because I think there will be a little bit of rotation here, then go for it. You could be on for some very big points, but it's high risk, high reward. You don't know if you're just going to have some blanks, some substitutes, some benching, some early subs, particularly against Leicester, who you think Liverpool should absolutely demolish, judging by the two teams' relative performances. And Maddison is the one player from Spurs I think I would consider, because when he's in form, he often keeps that form going. 5 goals and 1 assist is really, really nice in recent game weeks. And even though I don't love the Forest fixture, there is some okay fixtures in here for Spurs. So Maddison would be super high for me, but I think he is a player to consider. I'm going to put Mbeumo down as an avoid. He seems a little bit backwards, and he's just not putting up the data of some of these alternative options. Particularly, a lot of the cheaper players are doing just as well, if not better, than Mbeumo right now. So seems little point in going there if you don't have him already. Rodgers, this is going to be controversial, but away against Newcastle, who have been improving defensively, I don't think this is the week to buy Rodgers, despite his great performance against Man City. I have Rodgers in my team, in my squad. I think I'm going to bench him this week, if I'm totally honest. I think if you are looking for Rodgers, wait one more week. Brighton and Leicester look like a much nicer hopping on point for Morgan Rodgers than Game Week 18 away against Newcastle. So I think it's a little risky to go for Rodgers this week, despite that top performance he put up. I can't see myself buying him ahead of all of these other players we've mentioned so far today. And Heung-min Son, I think Saka owners will be tempted to just go for another expensive premium midfielder, but we know by now Son has not been providing value for money. You know, against Liverpool, you know, we see Spurs get 3 goals. Son is hardly involved in that. It's not what you want to see from these super expensive attackers. Too wide a lot of the time, does get opportunities sometimes in the fixtures that suit him more, but Nottingham Forest away, to me, is not a fixture that suits Son very well. So for that reason, I'm out. I think Son is going to be an avoid at that price tag. Just don't see him providing the value for money that everyone else on this list is capable of providing. Okay, let's whiz through defenders, because I appreciate this video is getting on. If I am buying a new defender this week, it is going to be a Liverpool defender, surely. Look at these amazing fixtures. Leicester, West Ham, Man United and Forest. Lots of clean sheet opportunities, and for Trent and Van Dijk, there is attacking opportunities here as well. So this is where I'd be looking to put my Saka money if I was trying to upgrade my defense somewhere. Trent and Van Dijk. Would even consider hits for many of these players. The defenders, you know, Isak, I would consider a hit for him as well. And Liverpool defenders, particularly Trent, would consider a hit for him as well if my defense was looking pretty rubbish this week. Gabriel is always going to be a buy as well. I think he should be a mainstay of our FPL teams. Looking at some slicer cheaper options, and I don't think there's any rush to buy cheap defenders this game week, but if you need to, if you want to, Daniel Munoz is here. He is probably my favourite cheap defender to own for the long term. Even though Bournemouth away is probably not the best hopping on point, you can possibly wait one more week before going for Munoz. Robinson and Castagna are decent players to own in general, but again, against Chelsea away, I'll probably give it one more week. Mykolenko's an interesting one because even though Man City are considered a top attack, Everton just seem to keep clean sheets against everyone, and Mykolenko is only 4.3 million, so why not? Yeah, definitely a player to monitor right now. Saliba, don't think I'd buy him, but as I always say, an Arsenal defender is never an avoid. But you know who is a void? Hall. Yeah, doing really well last couple of game weeks, but Villa, Man United and Spurs are all teams more than capable of scoring against Newcastle. So yeah, if you have Hall already, great. Okay to play him, but I don't think this is the right moment to buy him. I still prefer Munoz, Robinson, Castagna, even longer term, so Hall would be off my shopping list if I was looking for a new defender. And of course, the Forest defenders, I know you guys are not going to like me, but I am going to put Aina in the avoid section once again. I know he gets this haul every 5 game weeks, but he blanks the other 4 or 5 game weeks in a row. So, what are you going to do, guys? What are you going to do, man? Yeah, it's crazy. He is incredibly inconsistent as an FPL asset. And against Spurs, a team who's just put 3 goals past Liverpool, do we think Forest are going to keep a clean sheet here? I personally don't, and I don't think it's a good moment to go for Forest defenders. However, next game week 19, we will be having a different conversation. I know I say that a lot, but we do. We genuinely do. When we say, yeah, avoid for this week, let's talk about them again next week, we are open to changing week on week. That's part of the process. That's part of the timing, particularly with defenders where timing is key of when you're going to buy them. For me, the timing for Forest defenders is not right in Game Week 18. And a quick whiz through the goalkeepers. And Raya and Sanchez obviously going to be keeps. Their fixtures are fine. They're good enough. And we expect to see some clean sheets in here, particularly for Raya, playing for this top Arsenal defence. Kelleher and Pope, given that they're not going to be playing, are sells. The only real reason to sell a goalkeeper is if they're not playing. As for buys, I think I would go for Alisson right now if I could pick any goalkeeper fresh and new for Game Week 18 with the great fixtures coming up for the Liverpool defence. Henderson, if you're looking for a slightly cheaper guy, is another player I would consider, as it would be Kepa Arrizabalaga, and avoid Pickford and Sells. I just can't see it being worth making a goalkeeper transfer on these guys ahead of Game Week 18. Surely whoever you've got in goal right now can do better than, well, just as well as Pickford and Sells, or similar. Like, is it worth a transfer? We got to remove Saka. We got to remove like Nori, maybe Cunha. And you want to make a goalkeeper transfer for a goalkeeper who has a terrible fixture? I just can't see it, man. Like, but yeah, again, we will rediscuss in Game Week 19. But there we go, guys. If there's any players we didn't mention in today's video, let me know in the comments section and we will give them a review, a buy, sell, keep, or an avoid. Just let me know in the comments any players you want to talk about. Of course, I would massively appreciate it if you did like the video before you go. Do subscribe if you're new around here, and the content is not stopping over Christmas, guys. We've got videos every single day until the Boxing Day deadline. So stay tuned for that, and I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.